Backseas Musical Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Bax, and welcome back to a very special metal edition of Backseas Musical Podcast. I'm excited about today because I'm going to be talking to a guy who I've had the opportunity to interview before, but this is the first time that we've sat down for a real long time to discuss his career. Jeff Plate from the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Get a load of this. In 2019, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra grossed more than $47 million in just 30 days. This is a band whose popularity has grown to such a degree that over the last 2.5 decades, it's now taken 2 touring bands to keep up with the demand. For example, this year, the TSO will be banging out 100 shows in 60 cities over the course of just 45 days. Think about that for a moment. The TSO is an incredible success story on nearly every level, despite usually limiting their touring schedule to the late fall and through the winter of every year. There has simply never been anything quite like them. Now, whether you're into the TSO or not isn't really the point. You have to, at the very least, respect the fact that they've touched a nerve and have become an annual tradition, an institution, and an insanely successful one at that, racking up more than $725 million in concert revenues since they started in 1996. And much of that has gone to local charities. Now, that is almost unheard of. But the musicians that make up the band come from a wide range of sources: rock, metal, thrash, progressive, classical, as well as new age and Broadway, and a whole lot more. But the musicians involved in the TSO just don't wait around for things to kick off every year. Most of them stay incredibly busy throughout the whole year on their own projects. And that would include my guest today, one of the founding members of the TSO, drummer Jeff Plate. Now, Jeff Plate is not only the former drummer for metal bands like Sabotage and Metal Circus, he's also just released music with his latest project called All Terrain, whose first album, Mother's Day, was released last year. They also released a new single, and it is great, and a new album is on the way later in 2022. And as a guy who's played drums for virtually his whole life, it's always nice to talk things up with a guy who is significantly better than me. This is my conversation with Jeff Plate from Sabotage, TSO, Metal Circus, and All Terrain. It's Backseas Musical Podcast.
Michael.
Jeff, how are you?
I'm good.
Look at that. Look at that kid. God damn it, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's my baby. This is my office. This is where I do the damage.
Oh my God. And
can you hear me okay? Everything good?
I can hear you fine. Thank you very much. First of all, thanks for getting in touch with me because, you know, I've been playing drums very, very badly since 1978, and to talk to a guy who actually knows what the hell he's doing and is really good at it and has made a career out of it is always a thrill. So the first thing I see is the kid and I'm going, oh my God, look at that. What a beautiful thing that is.
I've come a long way from beating on coffee cans and furniture to what I've done in my career. It's been quite a trip. It's been awesome.
It's funny you're wearing a Peter Criss t-shirt, because when I was a kid, 1978, my first show was Kiss at the Providence Civic Center.
Oh my God.
My parents took me for that one. And all I wanted to do as a drummer was learn that Peter Criss drum solo from the Alive record, and only to realize, hey, you know, it really wasn't that complicated to begin with.
Nope, it's just all triplets. So when I was a kid, I grew up in upstate New York, country. Parents loved country music. We watched Hee Haw every Saturday, you know, and I'd watch Soul Train and American Bandstand or whatever came along. In 74, I believe it was, I saw Chicago live at Caribou Ranch.
Okay.
They did this TV special on ABC, and I fell in love with the band. It was like, I'm like 12 years old, and wow, Chicago's my favorite band. And Chicago 7 was the first album I ever bought. And then And I listened to that album now, and it's like I can't believe I was that young listening to this because that album is so eclectic. It's all over the place. But the following year, I saw a commercial for the Midnight Special and this little flash of Kiss. And I talked my parents into letting me stay up. Of course, I had to take the evening nap, and then they woke me up at like 11 o'clock and said, "Okay, you can stay up and watch this." And I just remember sitting in front of the television with my General Electric cassette recorder, holding it up to the speaker, and I was just completely blown away. I mean, it was like, what the hell is going on here? But it was just awesome. They were like cartoon characters that came to life. They were like superheroes that came to life. And here I am, like I said, I'm like a country kid. And here's Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley's head is spinning around in circles, and Peter Criss rises up in the air. I was like, and that moment completely changed my life.
Yeah.
And here I am. So I represent, that live album. I was just talking with Don Jameson the other night about this. And that live album has always, there's always a lot of conversation about a live one and this and that. How was it recorded and whatever. It is one of the best heavy metal records ever. I don't care how it was recorded or what the deal is, but the playing is fantastic. The vocals are great. Peter Criss's drumming is so good. And as you mentioned earlier, the drum solo, it's not the most complicated thing, but it was perfect for what they were doing. It was just Ace Frehley, all those solos, they're just timeless. And yeah, like I said, that changed my life. That put me in orbit. And
I think there were a lot of us back then that kind of felt the same way. And I don't think kids today have any real understanding of how enormous this band was. I mean, there was nothing like it. And, now many years later, Kiss seems more, cartoonish than anything else. But the reality is, for like a young kid in the 70s, that was all anybody wanted to be, was Ace Frehley or Peter Criss.
Well, like I said, I'm in an area where I get 3 television channels. The most musical excitement I get is when the fair comes around every year, and I go see Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, or Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or whatever band was playing. But to see something like that, I mean, granted, if you were in New York City, maybe you saw the New York Dolls, and maybe you saw some other stuff that kind of, similar. But Kiss was just something that, for a rural kid with, just dreams, you saw that, he's like, oh my God, my dream just came to life. That's it. They're right there, and it's just something how they started out just as such a raw rock and roll metal band. What they became in years later, say what you will about it. Those guys are so successful in being in the business. You can't knock a thing that they have done to get where they are. But I think in reference to how we looked at it back then, there was no internet really or anything like that. All these guys were a mystery. When you right. got that record, you stared at it and just wondered, what do these cats really look like? And all this and that, Aerosmith and Blue Oyster Cult, all these bands, you didn't know who these people were. And now, as soon as a band comes out, you just Google them, and there they are right there. There's no mystery anymore.
But what's cool about Kiss, which and this is true, and it's good that I'm talking to you about this, because I think TSO in a lot of ways also figured this out, that if you're going to spend money on a concert, whether it's 1975 or 2022, if you're going to spend money on a concert, there should be a level of showmanship. Kiss had showmanship. That was a whole stage show, from everything from breathing fire to the pyrotechnics to everything about that show was all about the showmanship. TSO has done that too, where you're doing like theme shows for and tours that are very compact, 2 different bands playing simultaneously. That's something that you guys definitely picked up on and really made a whole industry out of, because
Sure.
That's what people who are going to spend that kind of money on a show kind of deserve.
Yes, and there is a book, I think it's called Nothing to Lose, and it was about Kiss from the beginning up to the live album, and just how hard they worked to get there. You know, they were almost dropped by the record label. They were tremendously in debt, all of the above. But those guys went out, and whether you want to criticize their playing or not, they were tight, they were spot on, they put on a great show, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were making no bones about it. So with TSO, Paul O'Neill's vision was everything that he grew up with, along with Broadway, along with storytelling, along with, you know, all of the above. And, you know, Paul's whole thing was more is better. It's just throw everything we can at the audience. And he wanted to assault the senses, is what he would say. And I mean, honestly, if you go see a TSO show, depending on where you're sitting, you can't hardly keep up with everything that's going on. It's lighting, it's video, it's somebody's over here doing this and somebody's doing that. And, you know, I'm in the middle of doing my thing. And, you know, if you're up close, it's great, but you can't hardly keep up with it. And that's why a lot of people come see us twice a year.
Absolutely.
You know, they want to see the same show. So yeah, there are, you know, Paul O'Neill always had great respect for the guys in KISS and everything they achieved, because here again, was in the business for a long time and realized how hard it is to be successful. And
yeah. We'll talk about Paul and TSO a little bit more in depth in a little bit, but I wanted to tell you while I had you that I've been listening to the All Terrain album, Mother's Day, for a better part of a week, and it's a really, really good record. And then I was also given an MP3 copy of the new single, Heavy Metal, the Sammy Hagar song from '81. Yep. One, I think the version of it is fantastic. And then the second thing that I read was, I don't know of anyone else that has ever covered that song, which is it's unfathomable to me because it's such a great rock song from many years ago.
I don't know of anybody else either. And that wasn't my idea behind doing this. I had wanted to do something with this song for the longest time. I always loved it. That opening riff is just so awesome.
Yeah.
And Sammy Hagar is awesome. You know, I mean, Sammy's he's the man, you know, he's just great. But that song itself always just kind of resonated with me. And I remember I was in metal church for 11 years.
Right.
And I kept trying to get Kurt Vanderhoof. It's like, dude, we got to do a cover of Heavy Metal for metal church. Come on, you know? And it just never happened. So fast forward to 2019, I was putting together, I had just started working on the All Terrain material.
Right.
And I was also doing a cover band called Sun Sonic. And 4 of the members of All Terrain were actually in Sun Sonic. Myself, Tommy Cook, Colin Holloway, and Zach Hamilton. And we just started working up a version of Heavy Metal. And then COVID hit. And then the whole thing just obviously everything got derailed. And we put the cover band idea on the shelf. And I said, guys, me and Tommy Cook and Kevin McCarthy, the bass player, we had been working up some All Terrain stuff. And I said, look, guys, the cover thing ain't going to happen for a while. This may go on for a year. We don't know. Let's put that on the shelf. Let's focus everything on this All Terrain project and see what we can make of this. So once we got the album recorded, I was like, that version of Heavy Metal we were doing was too good to pass up on. Let's do something with this. And we started working on it. I took a part of Don Felder's Heavy Metal and added it to the middle section. And then Blue Oyster Cult also recorded a song called Heavy Metal, the Silver and Black. And there's a bridge section. That song didn't actually make it to the Heavy Metal movie, but there's a bridge section in that song, which was just, oh, this is killer. So I took that bridge section and that became our keyboard solo. And, you know, so I was just trying to incorporate everything that was around that song and in that movie and that idea into the song just to make it different. But thank you, man. I'm really, really proud of the way it came out. And my guys just played so well. They're awesome.
Yeah, it's a remarkably good band. I mean, not it's a remarkably, because you've been surrounding yourself with great musicians for a damn long time. And listening to the to Mother's Day, I was as a drummer, I'm hearing you play, but there's so much more to that band than just the drumming. There's a lot of great harmonies in it. The guitar is great. Jane's keyboards are great. I mean, you did a really good job. And I know to put an album together like this takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And my understanding is that this particular project had been kind of germinating for a long time, maybe even before 2019.
Yep. So flashback to the late 80s, I was living in Boston and working with a guitarist named Matt Leff. Matt was a GIT grad, Guitar Institute of Technology, and he was just awesome. He had auditioned for a deal at one point and came very, very close to getting that gig. And he had some other gigs, Atom Bomb, I think he played in, and Helix out of Canada. So Matt and I hooked up in the late 80s and started working on an original project. It's just a synchronicity. It's just so weird how things happen. But Matt, when he was in Hollywood at GIT, met Zach Stevens, who was going to VIT. So these two guys they did a little project together, like a couple songs, and it was kind of like a school project. So once Matt and I started working up this material, he's like, I've got the singer for this project, but he's in LA. I was like, well, let's fly him to Boston. So we flew Zach to Boston. This was 1989, I believe. But anyhow, we picked Zach up at the airport, and we go to a place in Boston called the Channel, which was this huge rock club. And it was like, all right, I just met this guy. Let's go out and have a beer and hang out a little bit. So we go to this club, and Savatage is playing. First time I'd ever seen Savatage. I really never even heard of them before. Zach Stevens had actually met them in California prior, so it was just weird. And then all of a sudden, but anyhow, this band was named Wicked Witch. We did a demo. We didn't really get any bites here in America, and honestly, we did not know enough about the foreign market to pursue that. Probably could have got a deal overseas, but so anyhow, while this was all happening, Nirvana comes along, flattens the whole hair metal scene, and then Zach gets the job singing for Savatage. So he brings me into this. But the material that the three of us were working on was really good. And I used to record everything on cassette. I've got like 25 90-minute cassettes of us playing, Sometimes it was a 12-second riff that Matt played that we just never did anything with. Sometimes it was almost a full song that just wasn't completed, but there was just some stuff there. I was like, this material is just way too good to not do anything with. So fast forward, Matt left, came down with cancer. He got really sick. We lost him a few years ago. And prior to that, I asked Matt, would you mind if I took some of this material and did something with it? I've got some ideas that I think are really good. And he gave me the green light and, just asked me to kind of keep him abreast of what was going on and what was developing, which I did. And then we lost Matt before the final version of the album. But some of this, there are some pieces of music on the Mother's Day album where the songs were almost completed back in 1990, but just never were finished. They didn't have the lyrics, or they didn't have this section or that section. Some of the material on Mother's Day is completely original, and we just kind of morphed the two ideas and two directions together. And honestly, it was all the same direction. It just needed to be completed.
That's an amazing story because you have to believe there are so many bands that have stuff recorded, never used. The joke is some of the best songs of all time no one has ever heard, and this would be one of those situations where you have stuff to reach back towards, and to have the ability and the opportunity to use it again. I mean, that's a stroke of great luck.
Well, I tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. And I've been surrounded by really, really good players, really good writers and producers, and I've been paying attention. And I just kind of got to a point a few years ago. I was like, if I'm going to do something, I better get on the stick here. I ain't getting any younger. So Tommy Cook is a guitarist in my area. I've known Tommy for 25 years, and he was the only guy that I could think of who had the right playing style and the right attitude to work with me, trying to emulate what Matt Leff was playing, but also build on it. So once Tommy and I got together and started working on some stuff, it was like, wow, this is really good. Okay, let's call Kevin McCarthy. We'll bring him in. Now we're starting to, this thing is starting to come together. And that's when I brought in Colin and Zach. So the five of us were working on the material here. And here again, this was basically myself and Tommy and Kevin down here in my studio, just jamming out stuff and going through things, recording ideas, blah, blah, blah. Once we had some stuff recorded, pretty much the entire record, I've known Jane Mangini since 2000. And every year we see each other, it's like, we should do something. Of course, everybody says that, you know? And so I called her up and I said, I'm going to send you a couple things and I just want to see what you think. And she said, Jeff, I love this stuff. And Jane, what she brought to this project, it made it more progressive. It made it more pop. It made it prettier in spots. And it made it heavier in spots. You know, she just knew what to do with this stuff. And honestly, Jane, I would send Jane a song and she would send me back like 15 different ideas for each. It's like, okay, I got to sit here and sort this out. But she always had so much great material to work with. It was a real joy to do that. And yeah, I mean, that really rounded out our sound. And I'm very, very proud of it.
You mentioned Sabotage a little while ago, and TSO has its real roots from that band. Tell me about Sabotage and your experience in that band and what it wound up creating.
So as I mentioned, Zach Stevens left my project in Boston and joined Sabotage. They were recording the Edge of Thorns record. This was 1992, I think, but prior to that, I mean, I had kind of seen Sabotage on Headbangers Ball, you know, Gutter Ballet and Hall of the Mountain King. I knew about the band, but I'd never really listened to them. Zach gets the gig with the band and Edge of Thorns comes out, and me and Matt sat in a car one night with a beer or something, sitting out in the parking lot of our apartment, and we just kind of listened to the album really loud. It was like, wow, Zach sounds great, and Chris Oliva, holy cow, this guy is a monster. And so Zach, congrats, man. Good luck. You know, keep us abreast of what's going on. So it wasn't long after that Chris Oliva died in the car accident.
Right.
And at that point, because the music scene changed so much in Boston, I moved back here to New York and kind of rethinking my life. And I figured I'll give Zach a call and see how he's doing, see what he's doing. Is Sabotage going to continue? Would you be interested in revisiting the old stuff and maybe trying something else with that? And I gave Zach a call in early 1994, and he says, well, Jeff, they're going to continue and they want to hire you. And I'm like, what? He said, yep, they've seen the pictures, they've heard the demo, I've told them all about you. Steve Wacholtz doesn't want to be the drummer anymore, and these guys want you in. And I was like, holy crap, I'm sitting in my apartment in Horseheads, New York, the last place I ever expected to get the call. And I was in. So all that being involved, the band was in such a transition. You know, Zach was the new lead singer. John Oliva came back in as keyboardist, guitarist, and vocalist. Johnny Middleton was still there on bass. New guitarist and Alex Skolnick. New drummer and me. It was really kind of a strange time for the band. And my whole approach to it was, you finally got the gig. You finally found your place. You know, this music fit me perfectly. And go down there and keep your mouth shut and don't make any mistakes and don't give them a chance to want to get rid of you. And I've been there ever since 94. But
yeah.
When I first joined Sabotage and I went down to Tampa and met everybody, here again, there was a lot of trepidation about what was going on. You know, where was the band going to go? How was this going to work? But everybody was so cool and so nice. And I was really floored once I started digging. I mean, basically, I went down there in the spring of '94 and they said, all right, go home and learn everything. because we don't know what we're doing on this next tour. And I was like, all right. So I came home and I quit my construction job and just started shedding on this stuff for hours a day. But then I realized Sabotage was much more than just a metal band. This band had some real dynamics, some real talent in the lyrics, the storytelling, the musicianship. It was all like, wow, I really had no idea these guys were this good. And it really inspired me even more.
When Paul O'Neill decides, hey, I've got an idea, and I've had a chance to interview Paul a number of times. I mean, I've interviewed you before, but a number of times with Paul. First things first, man, that dude could talk.
I was going to say, he'd still be talking to you if you let him.
if he were still alive today, he'd still be talking through it all. But when Paul comes up with this idea for TSO, and you hear this idea, and he presents it to a number of you guys, what was your first reaction to it? Did you think it was like a great idea right away, or did it seem far-fetched to you?
Well, if you look back, I mean, when Paul came into Sabotage in, what was it, 86, I believe, for Hall of the Mountain King, you started hearing it right there.
Yeah.
Prelude to Madness. I mean, that symphonic piece, and it's like, all right, Paul's already injecting some of these ideas. The Gutter Ballet record, there is a lot of symphonic music there, a lot of drama in the lyrics and the storytelling part of it. You look at the video for Gutter Ballet and When the Crowds Are Gone, that looks like early TSO. Paul had this idea in his head in the 80s. This wasn't something new. And him and John Oliva, when I joined Sabotage, him and John and I believe Bob Kinkle were already working on some other Broadway-ish theater type musicals and things. So Paul had all these influences that he was creating music and stuff like that. But this also was a part of Sabotage too. I guess the strange thing about it was, for me, first of all, I'm the new guy. So I'm just kind of like standing back and listening and watching and going, he wants to do a Christmas song? What? I mean, even me, I thought this was kind of strange, but it fit into the story for Dead Winter Dead. It made perfect sense in the story. Him and John Oliva went around and around and around and around and around about this. And this was something that Paul had this idea for this mashup of these two songs, Carol of the Bells and God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. And he finally brought it to life. He finally had the platform and the story to put this thing in to make it work. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard the final version of it, I was like, holy cow, this is awesome.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's a Christmas song. How is this going to fly? And it was, like I said, I was new. If they wanted my opinion, I gave it. Otherwise, I just kind of kept my mouth shut. And, these are decisions that these guys need to make. But oddly enough, when that thing came out, when that album was released, that song just became this hit. And I remember I was in Tampa, Florida, and Mason Dixon was the DJ down there. And anyhow, they were playing the song. And one morning, we all knew he was playing the song. So one morning I woke up, and of course I had been out the night before, and I turned on the radio, and there's the song. I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. And then this older woman calls in. She's like, God, I love that song. Who's that band? And he said, well, it's a band from the area here called Sabotage, and they're kind of a metal band. They're kind of loud and whatever. I don't think the rest of the record is really much like this song, and da 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 da. And I'm like, wow, he really shouldn't say that. So I called him, and he put me on the air, and we talked for a second, and then off the air he said, Jeff, you guys have a hit song. And I called the office. 2 minutes later, Paul calls me back. What did he say? Told him, click. And then it was on.
Yeah.
It was in Tampa, it was in New York City, and then it was spread from there.
Well, I mean, I remember, when it came out too, there were people just talking about it. We weren't even playing it yet. Just there was a lot of talk about that you guys had done this song and you really needed to hear it. And it took a while before it got on the air. but I've never heard buzz like that for a Christmas song. In 36 years of being in radio, I've never heard that before. But with you guys, it happened. And by the time you guys were able to turn this into a full stage show, at what point do you say, all right, I think we really got something here. It's more where this is beyond just one or two songs. This is now something that has a total life of its own.
Well, that was pretty obvious just in that phone call I just mentioned. It's like, wow, we've got something here. Paul, you nailed it. But the ironic thing was Christmas Eve Sarajevo 1224 became this holiday hit in America. The record Dead Winter Dead did not resonate too well in America. The fan base loved it and everything. But in Europe, the record took off.
Yeah.
So 96, Sabotage goes to Europe, and then we even retooled the band even more. Chris Caffrey and Al Petrelli both came back into Sabotage on guitar, respectively. And we went to Europe to tour this record, and every venue we played was sold out. It was unbelievable. I mean, we got this thing going on in Europe. We're over there being metal rock stars. We got this holiday thing going on here in the States. So Paul, by design, by accident, whatever it was, we had kind of the best of both worlds. And so obviously once that song it was obvious to them that there was something here. This was the vehicle that Paul had been waiting for to launch his symphonic rock project, like the ultimate project that he had been thinking of for years. This was the vehicle for him to get on and do it with. And then Trans-Siberian Orchestra was actually formed. It was given a name. Then we did the first record, and that was a huge hit. And all of a sudden you realize it's like, wow, there really is something here. This is something else. So
when Paul died, there had to be some discussion. Okay, what do we do? I mean, do we continue doing this? And you and Joel and the other guys in the band were, obviously decided to carry on, and it was clearly the right decision. And I think Paul is probably still talking about that decision right now. But I mean, it was the right choice, and the demand. I mean, I don't know how you can look at it in any other way. To me, it's a real supply and demand issue. You've got two bands playing and touring simultaneously. The crowds, keep coming to see these shows year after year because now it's an annual tradition. People are seeing you guys on tour every single year. Was there any thought to maybe shutting it down and not continuing, or did that not even cross your mind?
Well, here again, this wasn't my decision to be made, but the whole time that TSO, from the first album to, that thing going gold, and then we're doing TV appearances, and then we do the second record. Well, the first album is platinum, multi-platinum. The second record was a big success. And when we started touring in 99, then you realized the whole thing is working, I think it was 04 or 05 when we released The Lost Christmas Eve and the song Wizards in Winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that that became a hit. It was on a Miller Lite commercial. Dude, we went from theaters to small arenas to all of a sudden selling out major arenas twice a day in the course of like 5 years. I can still remember walking on the stage, I think it was Cleveland, and just looking around going, I can't believe what's happening. It's unreal. We got like 4 sold out shows in a row, 2 a day, it's
amazing.
Unreal. But Paul, the whole time this thing was developing and becoming what it was, it really was obvious to us that we're becoming a tradition. And that's a pretty heavy thing to say and think.
But it's true.
It was reality.
Yeah.
It was reality. I mean, there's like some people cannot function during the holidays until they hear our music or see our show. And it's a family event for a lot of people. Paul, for years, kept pushing the envelope, making the show better, always saying, TSO is going to outlive us all. He used to always say that. TSO, we're going to pass this down to the next generation. We would do autograph lines after every show. So that kid that came through in the year 2000, all of a sudden he's a young man in 2019 with his own family. It's like, oh my God, it's going from generation to generation, and you've seen these people grow up right in front of you. But his whole plan was to create something that was going to be timeless, and the man achieved it. So when we lost Paul, we had to keep it going.
Yeah.
It's like this, he designed this to do this. We didn't expect to do it without him, but that's the reality we're facing right now. And his family and the management team all just, Paul would want it this way. He's been working his whole life for this, and we can't let him down.
One of the things that I think is really incredible is, while all of that stuff is true, the reality is that TSO over the years has maybe, and I don't know the exact numbers. I was reading online about what kind of revenues are generated from this organization. It's almost $750 million you guys have amassed over the years. And what is amazing to me, and I have great respect for this, a good deal of that money has gone to charity. It's not lining pockets. It's not, you guys are making money. Obviously, you have to do that, but there aren't a whole lot of tours out there that have charitable contributions on their tax forms. That is not the case with you guys. You've always been doing that over the years. And I think that's what separates you guys from anybody else.
So the first ticket that we ever sold, that was Paul's deal right from the very first show. What, $1 per ticket's going to a local charity. It's helping, these towns and cities invite us in to play. So this is the very least we can do to give something back. And Paul was really one of the most generous and sensitive people out there. He was well aware that he was all good, and he was well aware that a lot of people aren't. He's been in this industry for a long time. He's seen all the ups and downs and knows what comes along with it, but he's also been around the world enough to know that he was in a very good place. He also felt, if you're in the audience, you are contributing to helping somebody in your own backyard. So it's a win-win situation no matter what. So I think at this point it's roughly $18 million over the years that we've given to charity. So
amazing. Yeah.
There was something just released on Polestar. I think over the last 40 years, we are like number 11 in touring ticket sales or something like that.
And it's not like you guys are charging $5,000 for floor seats.
No.
That's
a little nuts.
That's amazing. That's incredible to me. No offense. It's not a band in the world I'd pay $5,000 for.
No, me neither. No way. No way.
It's too.
And you know what? You're paying $5,000 to see the band when they're past their prime. So I get it. It's business and all this and that, and that was the other thing too with Paul. He's like, this is a family show. I want the family to be able to afford to come see us. And he used to go toe to toe with the ticket sellers and people about the price of our tickets, because he demanded, no, this is not going to be crazy. These people are coming every year. They're bringing their families. Sometimes they're coming to multiple shows. They are buying merchandise. It's the holidays, and not that you have to be so generous. It is a business, but it's the holiday season.
Yeah.
So we're not going to nickel and dime our audience to a point where they can't afford to come see us anymore. And that's not going to happen.
I know there's not a lot you can talk about the upcoming tour because the dates have not been officially announced yet, but I've had a chance to see, what's coming up, and there have to be two bands to make this work, because the amount of shows in the amount of cities in such a short period of time is amazing to me. That this can happen, and that you do it successfully year after year. And especially coming back after, the pandemic, the fact that, this tour is going to go on, and people are going to go for the very same reasons you're talking about. What can you talk about this upcoming tour? Is there anything, specifically different than before, or is it primarily the same type of production?
So if you've seen us, you know what you're getting. You know, if you haven't seen us, please do, because you're not going to see anything like this anywhere else. It really is a show that stands on its own. Uh, you know, talk about the two bands and the amount of shows that we do. To add on to the question about carrying on TSO, you know, our management team has been with this project from the beginning.
Yeah.
So everybody, myself, Chris Caffrey, Al Petrelli, Johnny Middleton, we were here from the very beginning of this. There's a lot of people here that know what we're doing. And Paul did a very, very good job of surrounding himself with great people. And the road crew that puts this show up and takes it down, unreal. I mean, they are literally the stars of the show, because, you know, we're going to go from Worcester, 2 shows in Worcester, to 2 shows in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be up and running and ready for the matinee early. You know, it's unbelievable. But these guys are fantastic, and it is no small feat just to get this thing out of the parking lot, you know, prior to even playing a show. Just getting through rehearsals, the amount of work and investment that goes into it, it's amazing.
I keep looking at your drum set behind you, and I keep thinking of mine. Every time I've taken it down, it's like the worst sense of dread I have. It's going to take me 3 or 4 days to put it back the way I want it, the right way. And I during the pandemic, I kind of stopped playing because my wife is a teacher, and she was teaching from home for a while. And so I didn't play. I just, you know, kind of kept them, you know, I moved them from one room to another, and I still, to this day, I haven't gotten it back to the way I like. And the fact that, you know, here you are, you're going into this tour every year. You're just, all you got to do is sit on the drum throne, and everything is pretty much the way you want it. Maybe you adjust a cymbal here or there, but it's perfect every time. Every drummer that's not in that position envies the shit out of that, because that's the best part.
I tell you, man, my drum techs that I've had over the years are just fantastic. And yeah, if you've seen my kit, it's pretty damn cool.
It's
pretty
very
damn
cool. It is cool.
It's a big kit. My techs take just as much pride in it as I do. You know, they're out there looking at it, make sure all the cymbals are even, is everything shining. You know, they really make sure it looks and sounds great. But here again, under the schedule that we're under, if I don't have somebody like that, I'm in trouble.
Sure.
You know, I can literally go up there and sit down and play a show really without adjusting anything for the most part. But I always do. I mean, it's just what we do is, you know, well, this is tipped a little, this is blah, 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 whatever. But it is something else to get to the point where I don't have to do that. It's awesome. It really is.
People don't realize how truly important that is. I sat in with a band a couple years ago, and the drummer said, "Oh yeah, you know, come on up and play." And he had very short legs, and I'm not a real tall guy, but this guy was like much shorter than I was. And I played like 2 songs, and by the end of it, my legs were like so cramped because I didn't adjust where he was sitting, because I didn't want to screw things up for him. And I walked out of there, I'm limping. I'm like, oh my God, I'm walking out of here like I'm a 90-year-old man. But that shows you what kind of difference just like a fraction of an inch can do.
Sure.
It could totally screw you up.
Sure. This kit here, I've been endorsed by Pearl since '98, Zildjian, the early 2000s, and Vader drumsticks. When I lived in Boston, I've been using Vader since the mid '80s. Love them.
Great sticks.
But these drums pretty much sit here. I have another kit, a white Masters kit.
Yeah.
That if I'm going to play locally, that's the one I'll take out. So, to your point, yeah, once you get this thing set the way you want it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how hard you try to set it up exactly the same. It never is.
It's never the same. Nope.
It's never the same. And it's just a minor thing here or there, but if you know, you know, if you've played long enough, I'm sure the same is for guitar players and etc.
Yeah.
But as far as the drums, there are just so many things, especially on a big kit, that just need to be exactly right.
Yeah, I know we don't have a whole lot of time. When we were setting this up, you were telling me about how you teach as well, and I mean, I can't even imagine being like the 12-year-old kid that I was when I went to my first set of lessons, and all of a sudden it's Jeff Plate as my teacher. I mean that's freaking cool. The guy I had was this miserable elderly jazz player that just wanted to focus on ratamucues and paradiddles, and I just wanted to be John Bonham at the time. So I mean, I should have learned that stuff. I didn't learn it as well as I could, but to have Jeff Plate as a teacher would have been unbelievable.
Well, my platform certainly doesn't hurt, and when we were well, when I started teaching, but especially during COVID, when I was picking up students, everything was online, so there's actually some students just this week that I am meeting for the first time. I've been teaching them for probably 2 years.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it's like, hey folks, I think we're good. Why don't you come on up for a lesson. Let's talk in person. I'll show you the drum room and but a lot of these kids too, they get, even the parents, they kind of know about TSO, but they don't really know what it is. They've seen some video and stuff like that. So, okay, we're coming around town. Why don't you guys come out and see the show? They're just completely floored. They can't believe that I'm that dude that lives in the country in Horseheads, New York, and he's up there and there's flames and lasers and thing. It's like the show itself, even regardless of me, the show itself is enough to blow anybody away. But the fact that it's a great way to make a good impression on them, and especially the young ones. It's like, look, you gotta put your nose to the grindstone and practice and work at this.
That's
You
it.
never know what's going to happen. So, but I try to give. Talking about your old teacher, I try to. Okay, here's the deal. You tell me what you want to learn, and we'll learn it. But you're going to learn what I want to teach you too. So there's a give and a take there. I make sure that all my students learn how to read.
Yep.
Because it just opens everything up. Then they start understanding music. They can, get a drum tab for a song and read the song and play it correctly and that kind of thing. But there's also a lot of stuff too where the kid wants to learn how to play a certain song, and sometimes I'll bring the song up. There's one cool thing about young students now is the music they listen to. I have no clue. They'll bring up this band and I'll Google it or bring them up on YouTube. It's like, I've never heard of these guys, and they got like 8 million views. It's unreal.
Yeah.
But there is some drumming out there that is just mind blowing. There's so many good players.
One of the great things about YouTube, I mean, I look at players I would never have known about.
Yep.
They're unbelievably talented guys. It's real creative drumming. It's not just, especially on the jazz side. I mean, some of these guys are unreal.
The jazz element is fascinating. I mean, I'm meat and potatoes rock and roll metal guy.
Yeah.
And I've got some chops and finesse and this and that, but some of these guys have such feel in touch and dynamic. It really makes me want to like cry. It's like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I work on this years ago? But there are some progressive bands out there and drummers too that it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It makes me go, all right, after I'm done with this kid's lesson, I need to take a lesson. I got to sit down and start practicing, because there really is some fascinating stuff going on out there. And the amount of young people that are actually very good, that's another thing. It's like, how bad was it always like this? I don't know. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I watched even like Neil Peart, took lessons from Freddie Gruber at towards the middle part of his career just to learn to kind of you get into a pocket and you keep kind of doing what but not experiencing the idea that there's a whole other world of musicianship that you may not have thought of on your own. That was a pretty important thing for him to do. And I would imagine every drummer must kind of think, well, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's an easier way. Maybe there's a harder way, but I'll learn more by learning it.
Yeah. I mean, a friend of mine told me years ago, learn everything you can and forget it. And at some point in your life, you'll pull that rabbit out of your hat, whether you know it or not.
Yep.
Learning Latin music and jazz and all the rudiments and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you're playing AC/DC, you're really not going to utilize a lot of that, but you may stumble into something else where all of a sudden something pops out and wow, now I can apply that there. I mean, when I grew up, Neil Peart, we were talking about Peter Criss. Kiss was it for me for probably a couple of years. And that's really got me into drumming. But then I think it was, what was it? 76, 70, whatever year 2112 came out.
Yeah. All right. I think it was 76, maybe
76, I believe. I mean, that just like, I was just starting to figure out drumming. And then all of a sudden you listen to 2112, it's like, yep, that's where I want to go right there. So Neil Peart just kind of opened up the door to everything else. And I had an older friend who was a guitar player. He turned me on to, Return to Forever, Jean-Luc Ponty, all this kind of progressive jazz fusion stuff. Steve Smith on drums, fresh out of Berkeley.
amazing,
Awesome.
amazing drummer.
Awesome stuff.
I could watch Steve Smith play forever. Guys like Jojo Mayer or Benny Greb. I mean, those guys are like ridiculous, I think.
Yeah, probably my favorite cat out there now is Todd Zuckerman.
Oh yeah, yep.
With Styx. So it was 90, I think it was 98. Styx came back out, Return to Paradise tour. I remember Kansas was the opener, so it was a great bill. But Panazzo had recently passed. So here comes Styx with this new drummer. And I was just completely floored by how aggressive he was playing. I was like, honestly sitting there going, I can't believe these guys are letting this guy play like this. He's all over the place, but it is so musical and it fits the music. It just gave it a kick. And from then on, I've met Todd several times and we converse every once in a while, but he's just one of those guys that can play pretty much anything.
Yep. He sure can.
And really well.
Yeah.
Really well. So,
well, Jeff, I appreciate all the time you give me today. It's great to talk to you. The All Terrain Mother's Day, great record. Check out the single, Heavy Metal, the Sammy Hagar song. So freaking good. It's great to talk to you. And I know TSO is coming through our area in the fall. I'm sure those dates will be announced, relatively soon, but it's great to talk to you again.
Thank you. And I just want to put out there, El Terrain 2 is basically finished. I'm just getting mixes right now, waiting for the artwork, and we're hoping that probably early next spring, maybe February, early March, we'll be able to get the next record out. But it's more of the same. Hopefully we've taken a step in the right direction, but it's really, really a cool project. We're all proud of it, and I'm glad people are digging it. So
that's great.
Thanks for the good words, man.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, take care.
The TSO will be announcing the dates of their 2020 tour in mid-September, and as always, they put on a hell of a show at really manageable prices. And again, be sure to check out Mother's Day by All Terrain as well. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, feel free to share it, rate it, subscribe to it, tell all your friends about it. You can email me at bax@rock102.com. I would love to know what you think. And thanks again for listening to Baxi's Musical Podcast.